Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?
Hey, everyone in, let's go. Huddle up on 3. 1, 2, 3. Huddle up.
No one, and I mean no one, comes into our house and pushes us around. This is your game now, gentlemen.
Russian 3, dropping 8. Louis Angelele steps up, loads and throws. It's caught. It's pitched backwards, up in the air. It's on the ground, still in Clemson's hands. And now it is down. It is over. And the Irish have knocked off number 1 Clemson.
Fans on their feet. Rally towels are being waved. Brad Lidge stretches. The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Eller for the draw. And as the puck drops, the words that DC fans have been waiting to hear since 1974, the Washington Capitals are the 2018 Stanley Cup champions.
And now, welcome everyone to the Huddle Up Podcast.
We're not going to be fucking sucked this year. We're the Stanley Cup champions. Yeah!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Huddle Up Podcast. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel, and we're glad to be back with you again this week on a Tuesday night talking sports here for an hour or so, whatever time it takes us to get through the program. It is December the 14th, 2020. We have tons to talk about, including a Trojan travesty, closing in on answers and best of the best. But first, make sure you are following us on social media, Facebook and Twitter at Huddle Up Podcast, as well as on Instagram at Huddle Up Pod. You can subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, as well as Spotify, Amazon Music. Make sure you subscribe to the show on YouTube as well, where our shows do air each and every week live. And make sure you check out our home network, NGSC Sports, at ngscsports.com. Sean, back with us again this week. Sean, how we doing?
Oh, we're cruising, man. Beat the Saints. Jalen Hurts era.
You go.
Maybe.
There you go.
We don't know. There was a Carson Wentz era at one time. So who knows?
There was been a Nick Foles era. There's been Detmer eras. There's been a lot of eras.
Been a lot of them. Been an exciting week. We had a couple spoilers in college football. We got the new rankings out, and
oh boy,
your man Jerry saying the head coach is safe. So we got a lot of news.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the right call. Now, whether or not it's whether or not coordinators or things should stay, that's a whole nother battle in and of itself. But I don't necessarily think that the McCarthy era should be over after just one season. But let's jump right into it, Sean, because the latest batch of college football playoff rankings dropped just a little bit over an hour ago, and there's not. I don't find the whole lot offensive, frustrating, but there's definitely some things about this latest top 25, particularly in the top 10, that I'm just going, why don't you guys just make it the best of the SEC for the college football national title every year? I mean, I understand this is a weird year. I understand that resumes look different and are different than they should be, or we thought they were going to be going into, from last year to this year. But the most glaring one out of this, Sean, is Florida. The fact that Florida dropped one spot after losing to an unranked team at home, and then Georgia. Now I know they beat Missouri. Cincinnati was off, but Georgia jumping Cincinnati, like those two things.
Now, this is assuming, I mean, based on what I've seen from Cincinnati, if Cincinnati had played Missouri this weekend, I think Cincinnati would have beaten Missouri. And that's not discrediting Missouri. That's not saying anything about Cincinnati. It's just saying that, like, Cincinnati belongs in the discussion, and Missouri is about as far from it as any team in the SEC can be. So I'm with you. I mean, when I was just looking over them before we signed on, and to see Florida at 7 is baffling. I mean, Georgia has been too high for me for weeks in general. You have a 2-loss team. You're ahead of some, and Indiana has 1 loss, but it was a close one. It was not a blowout to proverbially this super talented Ohio State team. So I don't know that the resume of wins is that much more impressive for a Florida than, say, an Indiana is.
Right. And if they had lost by a field goal, a last second missed field goal at home, against Texas A&M, for example, I'd have no problem with them dropping 1 spot. But you lost to an LSU team that, I understand they've been starting to put that team back together. They graduated a lot. They they had quite a few players that were supposed to be some of their best players had opted out. But when you have an LSU team that has lost to Mississippi State, Missouri, Auburn, and then their other 2 losses were to Texas A&M and Alabama. The resume there is pretty lousy. This is not a good LSU team. And Florida, it was also at home. Like you don't even have the excuse that you were playing at LSU. And this year, because of smaller crowds, even a home or road game isn't as good or bad, I guess, as normally, because the crowds are smaller. Now they're bigger in the SEC than they are with some of these northern teams. But it absolutely, I'm scratching my head and I'm sitting there and I'm watching, the show, the rankings show, and they're still trying to make a case that for Florida to make it into the college football playoff if they beat Alabama this weekend. And I'm like, and I guess if they would blow them out, from 7-1, I guess you could make the argument, but I guess some of my issue with that is a couple of weeks ago, I think even it was the week, I think, before the Notre Dame Clemson game, or maybe it's the week after, that they're saying that, if Notre Dame slips up the rest of the way, or if Notre Dame loses to Clemson in the ACC championship, then they might not have the strong enough resume. And then they're sitting there tonight talking about, Florida getting in if they beat Alabama. They're talking about Clemson still getting in if they lose to Notre Dame this weekend, if it's close. And I'm sitting here just scratching my head, as in, how. And I think Reese Davis even kind of called out, I forget the name of the guy that's the committee chairman that they had on the show, even kind of called him out and is like, you're basically, to kind of summarize what he says, he's like, you're weighing Clemson differently. You're weighing Alabama differently. You're not even really giving, a team like Cincinnati a fair shake. And the guy kind of gave a couple of half-assed, reasons as to why Florida was where they were and why they dropped Cincinnati and stuff like this. And I mean, bringing up the idea of an 18 playoff, that's another topic for the offseason probably, because I think if you're looking at this now, this scenario that's playing out tonight and potentially to this Sunday when the final rankings are unveiled, the fact that Cincinnati was dropped a spot, that probably tells you all you need to know, that there needs to be more teams in a playoff. But this year, putting Florida, where they are this week is just absolutely nuts to me.
Well, and when you talk about LSU's losses, I mean, you can talk about the losses, and I was going to point out the same thing. But just looking at that schedule, the wins LSU had coming into that game were an early season win at Vanderbilt, a win against South Carolina, a win against Arkansas, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the Arkansas was close. And people can tell me how talented Arkansas is. And early in the season, it was like, oh, they could shake things up. They have 3 wins. So, I mean, it's not exactly a great resume coming in. And you had it, like you said, at home. I think, and when you talk about, they had to scrape back into that game. LSU really jumped out. You saw some kind of just sloppy mistakes early from Florida. And not to mention, I mean, obviously the shoe throw, just a lack of control there. I mean, sure. I know there's not much you can do from the sidelines at that point, but to even have a player willing to do that, just kind of shows that kind of immaturity when you're talking about those top tier SEC teams and the youth kind of Florida. I would say that's a big flag to me. The only thing that makes sense to me, and I see down here needs to be the conference champs and the best non-power 5 and some at-large bids, do an 8-team playoff. I still, as much as I love the idea of an 8-team playoff, I do understand it. I mean, people talk about, and the basketball does 64. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I mean, as far as prep time and like actual wear and tear and the number of people you have to have ready, 64 and 32 are not possible. And I think 16 is highly questionable.
Yeah, I think 8's
I always like the idea of, 8's a good number. Even if you go to 6, I feel like if you had buys in the first, maybe your proverbial top 2, or maybe there's only 2 unbeatens and they wind up with buys, that says something. Give them an extra week to prepare, give you some incentive for being at the top. And they see we're rewarding players. Guy stated they were rewarding teams because they had certain players, like Iowa State has a leading rusher. Yeah, and some of that is it's the money. You want those teams kind of sitting there, because if your big money teams don't get in, you can at least market players. And I think that's almost where Florida is. The only thing that makes sense for me is if Florida falls to like 12 or lower. What sort of sell do you have for the SEC title game anymore other than come watch Alabama again? So if you keep them close, I still think from 7, obviously you need some teams ahead of you to lose. You could jump, but I think even with a pretty – because let's face it, it's not going to be a convincing win. They're not going to go in there and trounce Alabama. If they win, it's going to be close.
Do you think that the reason they dropped Florida just to 7, it's a
2 reasons.
Just in case Florida wins, Alabama?
I think it's 2 reasons. One, you can sell the title game.
Yeah.
1 versus 7 looks good.
Sure.
And, it gives Alabama that quality, no contest, number 1 seed. I don't even know if they are the guaranteed number 1 seed. I think if for some reason, everybody, all we've been talking about is what if Notre Dame loses? What if Notre Dame loses?
What if Notre
Dame wins? You know what I mean? If Notre Dame wins game,
we'll get to Notre Dame Clemson.
Right, we'll get to that eventually. But like, if that were to happen and you get kind of a jostle around, I don't think it's a lock that Alabama stays at that 1 seed. But what it does is if Florida finds a way to win, it might be just far enough, as long as things go the right way, that they can't jump in. But Alabama can stay in because they lost to a number 17.
Yeah, and I saw Chris says here every other NCAA division does 16-team playoff bracket. I think because, I mean, if you're looking at 16-1, Iowa, it would be Iowa versus Alabama. I'm sorry, that's not a game.
No.
Now, is Georgia Alabama a game? Maybe. It's definitely going to be a better game than Iowa Alabama. I don't have a problem with 8. The only thing I'll say, and I've argued against this for years, I don't think it should be an automatic bid for the conference champions. 99% of the time, your conference champion will probably be in those top 8.
Right.
Your Power 5. But in a situation, look at right now. I mean, again, this is a weird year, but USC is gonna probably win the Pac-12. They're not even going to be in the top 10. There was a year where Penn State played in the Orange Bowl against ACC champion Florida State, who was 22nd in the country going in. So there shouldn't be automatic bids.
Yeah, I don't, especially if we were talking about a 16 or a 32, maybe, but you can't play that many games. These kids have way too much on the line, so as it is. And like you said, the farther you trickle down the top 25, the farther you get down to what we would call the mediocrity pool, like you said, the harder to sell those first round games are. I mean, college basketball does it, and the number one's never going to lose, but in the hope that they do.
Again, college basketball, part of that sell in those first 2 rounds is take the day off of work. It's during a weekday. Come out to the bar, this and that. College football is still going to be on a weekend.
Yeah.
So, you're still going to have the bowl system. You're still going to have I think 8's the number because, you get North Carolina and Notre Dame again. That'd be a fun game to watch again. But then you get Clemson and Northwestern. Ohio State, USC. To me,
and the only other hard part, and it's something you alluded to earlier, if you expand it even to 8, and it's one of my arguments against 8. Not that I have many. I don't mind 8 as a number. I kind of prefer the 6. And the reason is because of what you're seeing with Florida and Georgia and the over embellishment of SEC prowess in college football is you would run the risk of half of the teams being from the same conference. And I'm with you on not giving automatic bids, but something would have to be done. And I think, the way it would do, if you eliminate the committee, if maybe every conference has someone on the committee, I don't know how you have to do it. Maybe let the fans or the media vote for the bottom 2 or 3. I don't know how the perfect system works, but I think right now you have Cincinnati just kind of hanging a few out, and you have Iowa State kind of just hovering there. And it's if we don't have anyone else, we could always slide them in. All you're going to see is if it goes to 8, those teams won't get any higher than 10. And I think that you're going to kind of see that happening where if 8 are getting in, they're still going to try to put the 8 best teams in as best they can. Anything you can do. When is 2 losses better than 1? And when is 1 loss better than 0? And it's still going to be, you're going to run into the same one where why isn't Cincinnati? So don't just assume that Cincinnati's still sitting at 7 or 8.
Right.
In an 8-team playoff. I don't think it happens. The college football is way too smart for that.
Yeah, there will always be an argument. But I look back over, 2 years ago, the second to last college football playoff ranking. This is your top 8: Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, UCF. So you had SEC, ACC, Independent, Big 12, Big 10, AAC within your top 8. Now the Pac-12 is on the outside looking in with Washington. Then I looked,
as they usually should be,
as they usually are. And then I looked at last year's second to last, which is the same week we're in now. You had LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, Oregon, Baylor, Wisconsin. So there you had SEC, Big 10, ACC, Big 12, Pac-12. So you had 5. You had the Power 5 conferences. Now your highest non-Power 5 team, they weren't even in the discussion last year. Memphis all the way down at 17. At that point, Notre Dame was down at 15. They had 2 losses last year. So, there's going to be years where you have 2 or 3 from each. There's going to be years because this year is a very strange year because of the way everything has played out. So having 3 SEC teams in the top 8, I don't think happens. Actually, 4. Is it 4? It's 4. You have 4 SEC teams in the top 8 currently. I don't think that will usually happen most seasons.
And it's not the last ranking of the year either.
No.
Because for all intents and purposes, if we're going to just assume that Alabama is going to win like they always do, then Florida's out. I think if some teams behind win a conference championship game, there's a good chance Georgia's out. It's going to shuffle around. And as teams play that conference championship weekend, they should be able to pop in. And it looks like Chris is kind of agreeing with me here.
Yeah, there's, and I wouldn't necessarily say that they have no chance. I mean, I think a non-Power 5 is in a similar boat to what Notre Dame is in every year, where you have to go undefeated. You know, is it fair? You know, and I get Notre Dame and non-Power 5s are different, but is it fair to is it fair to, a Cincinnati that you have to go undefeated to have a chance? Maybe, maybe not. I think
it is fair.
Right, because they're, until and this isn't all their fault, because I know that, there are times that Power 5 schools don't schedule, a team like that, because it's not an easy, it's not an easy cakewalk non-conference game. So they have sometimes trouble scheduling the Alabamas or the Clemsons or the Wisconsins and stuff like that. But based on the quality of their schedule, I think you should have to go undefeated. If you have to go undefeated, we've seen most years they're at least up there near the discussion, like Cincinnati is this year. So I do think 8 is the number. Now, before we move away from this, and the 8 versus 4 versus 12 or whatever, that's something I think we could have a fun deep dive once we get towards the offseason. But the only other team that I saw some people complaining about today, and it's more Pac-12 fans, is people are complaining that USC isn't higher, and they're trying to make all these excuses that because the Pac-12 had shut things down. They didn't even get back and start practicing until October, and they had a slow start, but they've come on late. And I looked at their schedule. 3 of their current 5 wins have come against teams with a combined record of 4-10. And out of those 3, out of those 5 wins and those games, those 3 games were come from behind when they're a total of 10 points, 3 victories by 10 points to a team with a combined record of 4-10. I'm not saying this as a Notre Dame fan and a lifelong USC hater. I'm looking at the fact that USC had to come back twice in the fourth quarter this past weekend against 500 UCLA. If you can't look at USC and see that they are different from Ohio State, Texas A&M, Iowa State, I'm not even bringing the top 3 teams into this discussion, because they are nowhere on the same planet as those. But if you're trying to make the argument that USC should be near the number 4 spot, you're going to try to tell me that they're better than 5-0 Ohio State. You're going to try and tell me they're better than 7-1 A&M, than 8-2 Iowa State. They're not. They're just not. Oh, you're muted there. There you go. Oh, we lost you.
Oh, technology. Where are they? Where's USC sitting? I don't have
13.
Yeah, and that's probably fairly fair. I mean, I guess the argument I would make is if the issue is, oh, well, they didn't play anybody and they only played 5 games, then why is Ohio State where they are? I mean, I understand that we know Ohio State's better. You can see it in the talent. We know who they have, and we know what their program does.
We've had
a lot more than USC. But you and I made the argument that in a tiebreaker scenario, that few of the games shouldn't have those teams that high. And do I still, in a way, think Texas A&M might deserve to be above them? A big part of me kind of feels that way. Same with Iowa State. But I can see why, if you're going to still value their 5 wins against what I would call a fairly mediocre schedule.
Oh yeah, Ohio State.
If you're going to value that resume enough to keep them just based on their, kind of their background, the lore of Ohio State, then maybe USC has an argument. Do I think they have an argument to be near 4? No. Maybe they crack the top 10 as an undefeated team. But if they think that it's like, well, we want to be close enough to jump in with a win in the title game or something like that, I don't know. Absolutely not. There's too many other teams better than you. Maybe you could make the argument that Florida should have fell past you to 14. Maybe make that argument.
I mean,
I'm push up a little bit.
I'm also still in the camp. Do I believe that Ohio State is one of the best 4 teams in the country? I do.
Pac-12 does have a title game, yes?
Yeah, it's USC and Oregon, because Washington, who is the number 2 team, can't play because of COVID. So
got it. So well,
so it's
it actually ends up as,
game.
in my opinion, a better sell. I think taking a possibly overrated USC team trying to prove themselves and taking the kind of preseason favorite in Oregon, I think that's a pretty fun matchup. And you know what? If you're USC, stop complaining, go out, beat Oregon. And I don't think there's a lot of scenarios where if they were to win this weekend that they don't end up in the top 10.
They'll probably get into the top 10, and they'll probably
you'll be a top 10 team. And then if you go to whatever bowl you wind up with and you win that one, you'll just sit there in the top 10. And from where you started the year and with the schedule you had and as weird as the Pac-10 12 schedule has been, that's about as high as I thought Oregon would end up. So
and the only problem for USC, and don't get me wrong, assuming that next year we get back to normal life and Notre Dame has USC back on the schedule, I'm here for Clay Helton getting more time as the head coach.
Yeah, just stick around
of the USC Trojans because, if I'm a USC fan, this is the worst case scenario because I thought that guy was going to be good.
Go ahead, keep things disorganized, keep things weird.
Absolutely.
Confused, those kind of words.
Yeah, we'll obviously get into the Clemson Notre Dame stuff here in just a few minutes because we're going to jump to our college football predictions for the week.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. So I've had some of these, and I will give you this one, dude. This is a good brew.
Yeah, I told you that hazy. I wish we could get it down here. If anybody out there, big fan, follow me at Sean Shine State. Hit me up on there. Let me know if you can ship a couple down. We'll maybe make a trade. I got some Sean Shine, Sunshine Cities. We got some of these. We can send you some lovely IPAs. Make a nice trade for it. But anyway, let's kick it off.
Looking at the records last week, Sean, I had a 3-0 perfect week in college football.
Congratulations.
28-19. You were 2-1. You are now 31-16. So I picked out let's see here 1, 2, 3, 8 of the championship games this weekend. So a big week. Hopefully they all get in. But we'll start with the MAC. Some action on a Friday night, 7:30 on ESPN. Ball State 5-1 taking on Buffalo, who is 5-0 and a 13.5-point favorite. 66.5 is your number on this one. I like Buffalo. They got that running back that is maybe one of the most talented running backs college football this year. So I like Buffalo to cover the 13.5 and pick up the win. I'm going to go over just because I like points in action.
Yeah, I mean, that kid's fun to watch. I hope people are tuning into this game. I think it could be a pretty fun one. Ball State has put up points, so I think you're spot on with the over. My only fear would be that Buffalo's defense plays as well as they have in a couple of their matchups and kind of holds things down. But, I mean, Ball State's coming in hot. Their only loss was in the very first week to Miami of Ohio by a touchdown. And they haven't looked back. I think this is going to be a very good game. But I'm with you. I'm going to take Buffalo.
Guy on a Buffalo.
High scoring route to it. And I'm kind of surprised this number is only at 66.
Yeah.
That concerns me because I feel like it's making me want to take the over. But the good thing is we don't keep track of that anyway. So I'll just keep pushing that over all day. But give me Buffalo right with you.
Those don't matter. Then we go to the Pac-12. This one Friday night, 8:00 on Fox. Oregon 3-2 again. They're in here because Washington unable to play due to COVID against number 13 USC 5-0. 3.5-point home favorite. This game being played at the Coliseum. 62 is your over/under on this one. I'm still not sold on this USC team. Like I said, they have a weak resume in a weak conference. Oregon has disappointed all year, but I think they're going to end the Pac-12 season on a high note. I think they may not win this game, but I'm going to take them to cover. I think it's going to be maybe only just a field goal victory in this one, but I wouldn't be shocked if Oregon pulls the upset. And I'm actually going to go under. I don't have a whole lot of faith in either of these offenses, which feels really weird to say in a Pac-12 game.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty high on Oregon coming into the season. I mean, about as high as I could be with a Pac-12 team. I thought maybe if they could get all the games in and win them all like I thought they would, they could be one of those teams sitting there where Iowa State is trying to sneak in here. What a disappointment. And I think the big thing for them is they've been able to put up points, but The one thing I thought they had an edge in the Pac-12 was that their defense was just better than everyone else's, and their defenses looked like a sieve. So I don't really know what to expect here. And with only do you have it at 3? I'm showing 3.
I had a 3.5.
All right, so you got the hook. All right, yeah, I don't buy USC 100% either, but I'm going to take them. I just all the heart side of me says it's going to be Oregon's day. Kind of a free chance to play for a title in the Pac-12. Kind of take the title you thought you would and kind of ruin somebody else's day. But I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing it on the resume. I'm not seeing it on the stat sheets where I want to. And as good as Oregon, their offense has looked, USC's been putting up a good bit of points too. Kept up with UCLA in a kind of an offensive slugfest, and I think that's pretty much what you're going to see here. I take USC to win and cover that 3 and a hook, and give me the over all day.
Very good. All right, then we go to Saturday at noon on Fox. It is the Big Ten Championship, number 14 Northwestern, 6-1. They are taking on, of course, with the amended Big Ten rules and regulations for this season, the number 4 Ohio State Buckeyes, who are 5-0 and a 20.5 point favorite. 58.5 is your number on this one. I think Ohio State wins this game. Like I said, I think they are one of the the best 4 teams in this country. But that said, they haven't overly convinced me. Their schedule has been weak. So I like Northwestern to cover 20.5. 20.5 is a big number in this one. I'm actually going to go the under too, because I think if Northwestern is going to cover that 20.5, it's going to be in a low scoring contest.
Yeah, that is a big number, and people are still pushing it up because I'm showing a live number at 21. Yeah, Northwestern has kept scores low. Now they don't play a very tough schedule. Their defense has kept scoring to a minimum. It has not been tested like Ohio State has. But man, I'm looking at the points Ohio State's hung up in their 5 wins, and I'm looking at teams like Indiana, Michigan State, and Rutgers, and even Penn State. And I'm looking at teams that I would argue may not be quite as good as Northwestern, but I think they're right in the same ballpark. I'm going to take Ohio State to put the exclamation on. I think Urban Meyer, I think that the whole program there is probably a little bit insulted that people like you and me are starting to question whether they belong in that top 4. And just in case some other crazy things happen, they need to put a statement on this game. I predicted it before, and I was wrong. They did not put the statement on things. But I think they cover this one. I think they find ways to score where other teams didn't, and I think Northwestern's offense has a hard time keeping up. And I'm going to take the over only because at that 57.5 number, I got Ohio State putting up 2/3 of it.
All right, then we go to the Big 12. Number 10, Oklahoma. They are 7-2 and a 5.5 point favorite against number 6 Iowa, who are 8-2. 58.5 is your number on this one. This is at noon on ABC this coming Saturday. I don't really know how I feel about Iowa State being put at number 6 in this week's college football playoff rankings. They were 7 last week. Florida lost, so I guess by default they had to move up. I don't necessarily believe that they are truly one of the 6 best teams in this country, but it's a weird year, and here we are. That said, I think Oklahoma's been clicking ever since some of those early losses, so I like Oklahoma to cover the 5.5. I think they're going to win this game fairly easily, and we know the rules and standards of the Big 12. It's going to be the over.
Oh yeah, you said Big 12. I just heard over. So yeah, we're going to take the over again. Seems to be a pretty big trend going on my picks here. Yeah, I don't know. I've always liked Iowa State, but I've always liked them kind of more as a spoiler. I always liked them kind of more as the sneaky team that beats a team late, kind of knocks them out of this game. I don't know how I feel about them being where they are. If you're thinking about betting them, that week 1 loss to Louisiana Lafayette's got to be a little bit concerning to you. It wasn't close. It was a 31-14 loss to Louisiana Lafayette. Caught you by surprise. And not a lot else that I've seen that has really impressed me. I'm with you. I think Oklahoma's rolling. I think you're finally seeing some statistics that would they have gotten it rolling right away. You might be talking about some Heisman candidates out of there. I'm going to take Oklahoma to roll with you. I'm going to take the over. We're going to agree on this one. And we'll both get our original pick of Oklahoma out of the Big 12 correct. The good news is they won't be challenging for a top 4 spot.
They will not. Then we go to the Sun Belt, number 19, Louisiana, 9-1. At number 12, Coastal Carolina, 11-0, 4-point home favorite in this one. 55 is your over-under, 330 on ESPN. This is a fun game. I think all eyes have kind of been on this one. We knew this was going to be the championship game of this conference, but I have no reason to believe that the Chanticleers aren't going to win this game. You have the mullets, you have the crazy mascot, you have the fans, you just have this energy with this team, and you have a teal field. So Coastal Carolina all the way. Give me they're going to cover and win in this one, and I'm going to take the over as well.
Yeah, this is dynamite. You got a team named the Raging Cajuns against the mullet toting, having fun Southern Boys Chanticleers team. You tell me we were going to have a championship weekend ranked matchup between teams called the Chanticleers and the Raging Cajuns, and I'd have probably laughed in your face. I'd have thought it was like a fast food chain battle between like Popeyes and someone else. But we're just fortunate enough to get to see this one happen. I like Louisiana Lafayette. I just pointed out they beat an Iowa State team who currently sitting just outside your top 4. So they're no slouch. I mean, people that have been following, I think Coastal Carolina's kind of built this fan base. Don't leave Louisiana Lafayette out of this. I think the spread's pretty accurate at 3.5. I think it's fun for betting. I think it's fun for everything. I'm going to take the mullets too, just because it's the more fun play here. But I would not be surprised if we both got this one wrong. And at 54 points, I've been playing the overs the whole time. Why not? Go mullets.
Then we go to the rematch of the century, the rematch of the year, whatever adjective and descriptions they're going to put on this game. It's the ACC championship. Number 3, Clemson, 9-1, a 10.5-point favorite in this one against number 2 Notre Dame, who is 10-0, 61.5. This one at 4:00 on ABC. This is what I kind of alluded to earlier, and what pisses me off, because if I hear one more fucking college football analyst talk about how Notre Dame's finally going to play the real Clemson, I'm probably going to blow my freaking my head's going to explode. Because, yes, Trevor Lawrence wasn't on the field, but how is that any different than in previous years if Alabama's quarterback doesn't play against Auburn, or if Ohio State's quarterback doesn't play against Penn State, or this and that? Like, injuries happen. This year, COVID happened. Like, so Notre Dame wins by a touchdown in double overtime in South Bend. Now, so you're telling me, based on this spread right now, that Trevor Lawrence is a 17-point shift. Notre Dame won by a touchdown. Okay, Notre Dame played at home.
Pretty good.
So let's move that number 3. So now you're telling me he's a 2-touchdown swing. Like, Uiagalelei is not. He's a 5-star.
Good job on the pronunciation. I know,
right? It's impressive. I couldn't say playoff predictions, but I could say Uiagalelei. But you're meaning to tell, like, Trevor Lawrence was a freshman 5-star recruit when he took Clemson undefeated national championship in his freshman year. That's what Uiagalelei is. He's a 5-star freshman. Mm-hmm. Like, is he as good as Trevor Lawrence? I don't know, but I'd say he's pretty fucking good. I don't think that Trevor Lawrence, especially this year, Trevor Lawrence has not been as good this year as he has been in his first 2 seasons. Whether or not it has to do with just maybe some lingering effects from the COVID, whether it's he's trying to play reserved a little bit so that he doesn't get hurt going into an NFL draft next year. I don't know, but he has not been as dominant, I would say, this year as he was the previous 2 seasons. I don't think he's a 14-point swing. Like, it doesn't surprise me. Clemson was favored the first time. It doesn't surprise me that they are favored this time. But, like, as a Notre Dame fan, I embrace it. I love the fact that Notre Dame is still the underdog, that everybody's looking at Notre Dame going, yeah, they're probably going to lose, but they'll still get in the playoffs most likely. Like, that's fine. Notre Dame has played this role before. They played it earlier this year. They won. I think Notre Dame is definitely covering 10.5. I do not think this game is going to be bigger than a touchdown. I think Notre Dame wins the game. I will obviously want them to win the game. I'm going to take the over. The last time we saw these two teams play, I think I took the under and ended up being 88 total point, something like it was like near 90 total points between the two. So I like Notre Dame to cover and the over.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing you're looking at is, let's not forget that, I don't know what people think Trevor Lawrence's stats would have been against Notre Dame, but as I look at, and I'm going to butcher it, Uiagalelei. Did I get it? Uiagalelei?
Close enough.
Close enough.
Close enough.
All right. We look at his stats. He threw for 439 yards and a pair of scores against Notre Dame.
Against one of the best defenses in college football.
Right. Notre Dame's defense has, for the most part, taken care of business week in and week out, and they took care of business. Whether or not they gave up 400 yards, they took care of business that day. He put up 430 yards. Now, I'm not going to look at the game coming out of that where Clemson got to play Pitt and, Trevor Lawrence got to put up similar stat lines. But let's take a look at last week. They got to play Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, comparable to Notre Dame? No. I mean, you can compare them if you want. Virginia Tech's not as good.
But you're wrong if you're trying to compare.
If you're trying to compare them, you're wrong. But you have a 5-win Virginia Tech team who could someone have bet them to upset Clemson? Sure. They play well, especially at home. But Trevor Lawrence's stats that game, he completed 12 of 22 passes, so just over 50%. He only put up 195 yards, a touchdown, threw a pick in the game. He did add some rushing yards, but it wasn't anything spectacular. It was about 60 yards, I think. Not even, 41. So you look at that game. Now, it wound up being a pretty decisive victory for him, and maybe he wasn't, playing there at the end as hard as he could have. Maybe there was a little more running involved. But I'm just saying, I don't know what people thought he was going to bring to that game. I mean, Clemson kind of has their niche in quarterbacks, have ever since Deshaun Watson. There's a reason why when you find out Trevor Lawrence isn't – because, I mean, you got the rookie. I mean, if anything, Notre Dame didn't know how to prepare for him because it's
Brian Kelly said that exact thing this week. He said, we've played Trevor Lawrence before. Trevor Lawrence, fairly similar in style to what they had seen with Deshaun Watson.
You prepare. To me, you prepare for all three of those quarterbacks the same way.
They didn't know how to prepare for Uiagalelei.
Right, because he can run, but will he? Like, are they going to do that?
Right.
Or are they going to trust what you were getting cannon of an arm? Which, by the way, Trevor Lawrence throws a beautiful ball. I'm not going to take anything away from the accuracy and that pinpoint drop.
Talent.
But the freshman, man, does he have a cannon? I mean, like just brute strength coming out of that right shoulder. He
throws the ball like Jamarcus Russell, but talented.
But to somebody.
But accurately.
Yeah. Which is scary for whoever that somebody is. At least with Jamarcus Russell,
he could
throw it through a house, but I don't think he could hit a house if he was 10 feet from it. So of course he made us look terrible in that bowl game.
Well,
we kind of were. Anyway, having said that, I'm looking at it, and I'm with you. I don't know where the big swing is. Would I have expected Clemson to be favored in this game? Probably, just based on what we know about the two programs and one being more proven over the past several years than the other. And I go ahead, give him the edge. But I think it's interesting just because everybody's been talking about, and we have too, if Notre Dame loses, are they still in? If Notre Dame loses, is there any, which by the way, with the Florida loss and everything else,
Notre Dame should already be in the college.
I think that, and I think Alabama's right there with us. I think those top two, whether they stay at 1-2, depends on a win or a loss. But I mean, those teams are at least locked in at 4, in my opinion. And if either of them fall out, then this thing's completely broken, and we need to start over. And for this game, I'm going to tell you, I'm with you. Notre Dame's going to cover, but I'm going to push it even farther. I think Notre Dame's going to win this game. I think this is going to be. Is it going to hurt Trevor Lawrence's draft stock? No. Is it going to hurt anybody's job on that coaching staff? No. But is it going to knock them out of the top 4? Yes. And I think it shakes things up, makes things a little more interesting, and you kind of got something to play for just outside of it. So if you're in that little near cusp, go ahead and play your heart out because you're going to have a chance to jump Clemson. They are going to lose. Notre Dame is going to win. It is going to be close, but they're going to win, and it's going to be done in an under. This is my first under of the week, and you can lock it up.
Oh, wow. Come on. I hit the button. It's waiting. It's thinking.
Lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up.
Your system was as shocked as you were.
It was. It wasn't ready. It was waiting for, one of the next.
I wasn't going to lock that game up, but the more I sat here hearing you talk and the more I heard myself talk, and I'm like, you know what? No, nobody thinks we're going to win this game. The only people that think they're going to win this game are me and the kids in that locker room. That is it.
That is
it, Chip. That is it.
Brian Kelly, we're going to win this game.
I think I say shock the world. Go get them.
Exactly. And that, what's even sadder is that people would look at it as a shock.
Shock the world. Go get them. Walk in as the 1 seed and take whoever sneaks in at 4.
Man, that'd be fun. Of
course, what would suck is if you win, get the 1 seed. Alabama loses and falls to 4.
Right, then you get Bama at 4.
And you get them in the first round instead of the second.
Or if it's not a big win, they just put Clemson back in. Then you got to beat Clemson a third.
You got to beat Clemson a third goddamn time. Yeah,
we can't win even when we win.
Yeah, I fully expect something like that to happen, but we will win this weekend.
There we go. All right, then we move to the AAC this Saturday night, 8:00 ABC. Number 23 Tulsa at number 9. Cincinnati, 14.5 point home favorite. 47 is your number. For me, I'm looking at this, and I thought for sure Cincinnati was going to come in either still at 8 or possibly up at 7. Instead, they got dropped to number 9. So I'm even further in my belief of what I wrote down today when I was prepping. Cincinnati's going to win this game. Cincinnati's going to win this game by a lot. They know if they even want to get anywhere near the conversation, which they probably can at this point, but they're going to try and make the committee look bad. So they're going to win this game by a hell of a lot of points. Definitely the over, and you can go ahead.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
All right. Well, I hate to do this to you.
Oh, no.
But I'm about to explain why your lock is incorrect.
Okay, you do that. I'm not going to tell you who it was because
I'm with you on every reason why Cincinnati should win this game, why Cincinnati needs to roll in this game, and why it's very important to them. And because of the importance of the game for Cincinnati and because of the situation they're in, I think they come in with a little bit of nerves. And you're looking at a Tulsa team that is not a slouch. They've only lost 1 game. They lost it right away, September 19th, to an Oklahoma State team that, oh, by the way, is pretty good. But
okay, I'll give them pretty good.
They're pretty good. And it was close. They held Oklahoma State to 16 points in that game. So it's a team that has a defense that can play, with the same type of quality wins. They had a Cincinnati game postponed back in October. They were ready to try to challenge them then. Had to watch that get moved to the end of the season. Have their wins been dominant? No. But have they been pretty good? Held Navy to 6 points. Then they were looking forward. December 5th, they played Navy. They won 19-6. Didn't put up the kind of points that Cincinnati's used to putting up. But then they turned to Cincinnati, and they're like, how do we stop these guys? We get to play them on the 12th. Oh, wait, never mind. Everybody's canceling games. We got to wait a whole nother. So they've had 2.5 weeks to get that defense tuned up and ready to go. And because Tulsa is a defensive team and is winning games with defense, it's a lot easier to get those wheels spinning than an offensive one that's been sitting around. And I think that it definitely means more for Cincinnati, even though usually the underdog, it means more. So because of that, I'm taking Tulsa to cover. Now, it's a big enough spread that we can both be right here, except that they won't do enough. I don't think Cincinnati if Tulsa covers, but I think Tulsa covers in this game. And I'm leaning towards Tulsa winning this game, not just covering. I think they're going to just shock it. It's going to knock Cincinnati out of here, and all of a sudden you don't have as much to talk about as why didn't they get a fair chance? Because I'm not really sold on Cincinnati's resume. They are pounding teams, but I'm not sold on that AAC resume. I think a lot of your quality teams that people thought were going to be there aren't, and this is the big one that is. So I think it kind of catches them by surprise. They're going to find themselves at the very least in a low-scoring game. So if you're looking at it, bet the under, and that's my take on that. So I wish you the best on your lock, but I think it's going to be closer than you think.
Yeah, I think it might hurt Cincinnati's resume in the long run too, that they wanted to get like a BYU game on the schedule and they just weren't able to make it happen. And I think it was because maybe some of their own COVID cases. Then finally, we close out the championship weekend Saturday night, 8:00 on CBS. It is a game that doesn't look quite as illustrious as it did a week ago. It is number 1 Alabama 10-0, a 17-point favorite against number 7, Florida, who is 8-2. 74 is your over-under on this one. 74 points, the highest of the over-unders for this for the championship weekend. Look, Alabama, they're I think they're licking their chops after seeing, whether or not Florida was looking ahead or whatever. I think Alabama's watching that film and they're just learning every bit of what they can do to dismantle this Florida team. Florida also gets a little hot under the collar. We saw it with the shoe throw. I mean, the absolute dumbest thing I've seen in a long time. So I think Bama's going to win. I think Bama's going to cover the 17. I don't think Florida stands much of a chance. And Nick Saban, and not that Alabama, I agree with what you said earlier. I think Alabama and Notre Dame are basically locked into a playoff berth. Whether or not they're the 1 or 2 seed is irrelevant. But I think Alabama, they just want to go out and just prove they are who they are. Once again, they're going to win and they're going to cover. And I'm going to take the under here because I think that Alabama is going to shut down Florida's offense. I don't know how many points Alabama is going to score, but I think they're going to disrupt Florida enough like LSU did early on. Now LSU let up. Alabama's not going to let up.
Well, I mean, I think stopping the offense is the big key here. I think there's 2 reasons why Alabama's going to try to. One is obviously to win the game and shut that offense down, knowing full well Florida's defense is definitely their weakness. So if you can score and obviously they don't score, that's pretty simple. But it's a lot simpler on paper. I think the other reason they're going to try to shut it down is because they're going to try to help their quarterback. This is kind of your Heisman shootout here. I think your Heisman is down, in my opinion, to 2 candidates. You can talk all you want about running backs in the Midwest or anything else. I think it's between Jones and Trask, assuming that both of them don't completely crap themselves here in the next couple of weeks while other people shine. It's definitely theirs to win. So this is kind of a fun one because of that and the fact that somehow the game got more important for Florida. I didn't think it could get more important. Somehow this game became more important for Florida. So I think they're going to come out firing, and I like everything I see from that kid. You talk about a Russell Wilson-esque deep ball. Trask throws a golden one. I don't know if I'd like to see him and Lawrence stand side by side. I think Trask has better arm strength, and I think he's able to kind of hit guys in stride a little. Just reminds me of Russell Wilson. And I'm not saying his play does, just his deep ball, but I like the kid. I like the Florida offense a lot. I think you're going to see a ton of points. I like this one to push over. Even looking at that number in the 70s, I like it to go over. But having said that about them pushing, I think both guys are going to put up a ton of yards and a ton of points, and you're not going to have a decider here. I don't think this is going to be a Heisman decider. I think it's going to be, your Trask supporters are going to be like, look what he did, and your Jones guys are going to be like, yeah, but we won the game, and then. It's going to be this whole argument, but I like Bama to win here just because of the lack of defense on the Florida side. I think you just don't get as many successful stops as Alabama does, and I think I think it's going to be a cover. I'm with you. I like Alabama to cover, but I think it's going to be a lot of points, and I think it's going to push well into the 80s or 90s.
It's ridiculous. This was once the conference of defense.
Ridiculous
that we were told time and time again that this was the conference of defense, and it just isn't
ridiculous.
Isn't the case anymore. But all right, Sean, we are going to pause here, and we are going to take our break and hear from our sponsor. Stick with us on the other side. We're going to talk NFL Coach of the Year, as well as our 4 biggest matchups in the National Football League this upcoming weekend. Stick with us. Huddle Up Live.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on ngscsports.com, where you can get awesome analysis on all things sports. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, subscribe to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop. Welcome back, Huddle Up Podcast, and we are live Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can follow us on social media at Huddle Up Podcast on Twitter and on Facebook, and you can follow us on Instagram at Huddle Up Pod. Make sure you subscribe to this show on all podcast platforms, Spotify and Amazon Music. If you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, please give us a rate and review. 5 stars. We'd appreciate that. And tell your friends. If you follow us and you listen to us, tell one friend about us this week. We'd appreciate that. Get as much of an audience in here as we can. Make sure, again, you check out our home network, NGSC Sports, and the sponsor of the show, Arena Eats. And, Sean, the NFL season is starting to near the end, and you got to start thinking about year-end awards and things like that. And one of them that is always one that comes up is the NFL Coach of the Year. And I was looking at this one because I feel like the comeback player of the year is or should be pretty easily. I feel like that one is Alex Smith, without question.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the minute Alex Smith took a snap, I feel like that award was his. Not taking into account that he's become the starter and has the Washington football team in first place. That
helps.
That helps. But like, based on everything he went through, I think I've seen people on Twitter, like, they'll be like, oh, when you think anybody else should win comeback player of the year, they post a picture of Alex Smith's like wound leg. And it's like, yeah, this guy wins it. But I want to look.
Which, by the way, as a quick side note, how phenomenal would it be if, like, and I'm not hoping Washington wins the NFC East, but it's looking pretty good.
Sure.
And if they were to pull it off, how incredible would a Alex Smith, Aaron Rodgers playoff matchup be, based on the start of their career and the path to that game?
Unreal.
It'd be amazing if it was a NFC championship game, like Alex Smith versus.
It certainly wouldn't be the first round, and obviously, depending how the things shake out.
Don't get me wrong. I don't see Washington shocking the world, getting there, going to the Super Bowl, anything like that. But I'm not going to say it's impossible. The defense plays well enough, and Alex Smith is safe enough. We've seen crazier things happen, but I think that would be an incredible sell for the NFL.
And I mean, if you're looking at the NFC, and spoiler alert. Now I'll talk about some of the other guys that are leading the odds and whatnot for NFL Coach of the Year. But to me, my Coach of the Year is Ron Rivera. And I understand that the Washington football team is currently sitting at 6-7. The best they can do is one game over 500 in what is a very bad NFC East. So I'm not sitting here and saying that it's Super Bowl or anything legendary, but you're looking at him coming over and taking that team and where they were at with Jay Gruden, and you started the year with Dwayne Haskins, and then you went to Kyle Allen, and now you turn it over to Alex Smith, and some of the challenges that Washington's faced from an ownership standpoint, and then also the fact that Ron Rivera, right at the start of this season, which has been weird in and of itself because of the whole COVID situation, Ron Rivera diagnosed with a form of cancer, and it was dealing with chemo and things like that as the season gone on, and to get his team to where they are and the way they're performing, and to have them in first place. The offense is clicking. It's not the best offense in football by any means, but it's doing enough to win. And then you have a defense that is absolutely just making plays. The NFC, and I've said it for weeks. There's a few great teams in the NFL, and then there's definitely bad teams, and then there's everybody else, and that group of everybody else is huge in the NFL this year. Like, you have terrible teams. the Jets, the Bengals, the Cowboys. The Cowboys keep finding ways to win. It pisses me off. Just get the best draft pick. Well, why are you winning football games? But like, you're looking at it, and outside of the Jets, outside of the Bengals, and the Jaguars, I mean, there's everybody else. There's just varying degrees of everybody else. It wouldn't shock me, and I that's why I put it in my like unreal scenarios the other week for the Washington football team to not only make it to the playoffs and win that division, but to win a playoff game or two and maybe get to the NFC Championship. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they get into that spot, because they're a team that has been kind of overperforming here as of late. But Sean, who do you think right now is kind of sitting in this Coach of the Year spot?
Well, I'm getting a little bit of audio feedback. I'm hoping it's not my internet actually dying. So if you lose me, I'll try to hop back on. But we
yeah, no, I think my internet's kind of glitching for a second here.
All right, okay. So maybe it's on your end. Either way, I'm going to start with a list of names that I think could easily win this award and probably should. And Rivera's on that short list for me of coaches that probably could be there. I would argue that Matt LaFleur in Green Bay is a very strong candidate based on, especially when there's critics out there like you who thought they were going to finish middle of the pack in the NFC North. So I think he's got a really strong case to win there. I'm going to drop Adam Gase here because he's managed to keep a job. I'm going to just go ahead and an interesting one for me would be, and I wouldn't be too shocked, would be a Kevin Stefanski, assuming that Cleveland's able to somehow win 2 games coming out here and make a playoff run to kind of be able. I mean, I still think they're a paper tiger and a bit of a sham. I don't trust Baker Mayfield to win a game he needs to win. And I'm not sure how I feel about the coaching staff as a whole. But for the Cleveland Browns to be sitting here at 9-4 right now, I'm going to go ahead and say that they probably deserve it. And obviously, I'm not going to take anything away from Andy Reid if he finishes the season with 1 loss, something that not a lot of teams have been able to do. There's something to be said for him as well. But I'm going to go out there and I'm going to throw this one to Sean McDermott. In my opinion, I think the AFC East all of a sudden became up for grabs with what shuffled with Tom Brady. I think some people thought Bill Belichick was just going to walk in and do this anyway, especially once Cam Newton showed up. And the Bills have been up and down, and they've sputtered and they've stalled, and the defense has been hit or miss. But I'll tell you what, over the last couple of weeks, that offense is clicking. Josh Allen is throwing laser beams out there. I think the defense has started to come to play. And in my opinion, if there's anybody in the AFC playing well enough to kind of unseed the Chiefs somewhere in those first couple of rounds, I don't think it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's the Buffalo Bills. I think there's some middle-of-the-road teams like the Dolphins that in the right scenario can do it. And you know what? They almost did it this weekend. But they got to get there first. And right now, in a fairly mediocre division, the Bills are really starting to rise here at the end and kind of show that there is a kind of a cream there at the crop. And you pointed out the Cowboys are winning games, and teams are. You're going to see. There's a lot more, I think, parity in the NFC where maybe there's not the greatest, as many great teams, but I don't think there's as many terrible teams either. I think your first handful of picks are all going to be AFC teams. And I feel like you're going to kind of, for every Kansas City Chiefs, there's a New York Jet out there waiting to kind of claw their way out of the bottom. So you kind of have a tale of 2 conferences. I think there's candidates in both, and I just feel like maybe the weakness of the NFC East in general is going to kind of hurt Rivera's chances of winning this. I like McDermott and Buffalo.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a solid one as well. There's definitely a pretty decent crop of coaches this year. So it's an interesting one. Looking at the odds, the current odds for Coach of the Year, Mike Tomlin is plus 135. He's leading the pack. I think that one's slipping away each and every week for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they're starting to fade into obscurity. Not obscurity, but they're starting to slip from the top of the NFL. Brian Flores, the Miami Dolphins coach, is number 2. Ron Rivera 3. Stefanski 4. Andy Reid, and then McDermott comes in at 6. McDermott at plus 1,100 right
Maybe
now.
I should make a bet.
I was going to say that might not
Just
be
$1. Throw $1 on.
That might not be a terrible bet to
Um,
make at this point. Your boy Matt LaFleur is sitting there at 8. He's plus 2,100 at this point, so maybe not a.
Well, my other one that sneaks in, and I almost like him as much as McDermott, but it hinges too much on the final couple games of the season. And I think if the Indianapolis Colts could win 2 games and kind of finish at like 11-4 and finish atop of that division, if they can eclipse the Tennessee Titans there, just based on where you were with, from a quarterback retiring at a young age and kind of trying to bouncing from a Jacoby Brissett to finding what many people thought was a washed-up Phillip Rivers and an offense that couldn't do anything and not really any running backs to speak of, except he had Marlon Mack, who gets hurt early. So I think to like kind of build that team on defense but show like flashes of offensive brilliance, and that's part of my man Frank Reich, Super Bowl 52, and boy do we miss him. Very inventive guy and definitely a player's coach. And I think if they get to 11-4, I think there's a very good chance for me that he's kind of my 2. Like that maybe he eclipses LaFleur and kind of sneaks in behind McDermott. I still like McDermott a bit more, but I would not be surprised if somehow Frank Reich pulled this off.
And Frank Reich sitting at plus 2,400 as well. If you want,
I need to throw $3 bets out there, just see what happens.
Not terrible ideas. Yeah, Rivera plus 490, Brian Flores plus 450.
I saw a couple $10, $20 bets out there. Just see what.
Yeah, they're not horrible ones as well. I think especially if Washington can close the season out, win the division, especially if they can get to above 500.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one should be fairly easy. But and let's stay here in Washington. But Sean, in the NFL with our picks,
let's do it. I don't like what you're about to say.
No, you do not. But against the spread this past week, Sean, I went 2-2. So currently I am at 28-23 overall. Sean, you went 1-3. So you are sitting at 28-23 overall. You and I have now fallen into a tie in the National Football League in our picks against the spread this season. With just 3 weeks to go in the NFL, so definitely a fun time here as we get close to the
very competitive, but also a very real chance that neither of us finishes over 500. Very real chance with 3 weeks to go,
especially with this season in the NFL. Absolutely,
I think the last 2 weeks the winning picks were 2-2. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So let's start in Washington. Like I said, this one's Sunday, 1:00. On Fox. It is the 9-4 Seattle Seahawks. They're a 5-point road favorite at 6-7. Washington 43.5 is your over under on this one. I put them in my spot for the surprise. I've said Alex Smith is your comeback player. I've said that Ron Rivera is your coach of the year. I've said this is the team that I want to win the NFC East. So I'm not going to pick against the Washington football team in this one. I think they're going to cover. I also think they're going to win, but they are definitely going to cover the 5 points. I'm going to go under though. I don't like either of these teams right now. The Seahawks have definitely been kind of tripping up as of late. And in Washington, we don't know if Alex Smith is going to start or Dwayne Haskins. So I think you're going to have to lean on the running game and the defense. So I like it to be under, even though it's 43.5. They want to keep this one close. So Washington cover and the under.
In the words of Corso, not so fast, Big Jim. Fun stat. I mean, you already had your little magic show with Washington the other week, and kind of catched them on a game that they're not picked to win. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I think going out here, there's not gonna. I don't know what their last couple are. I think it's probably one of them's against us. I'm pretty sure. I see your Broken Skull IPA on there, looking pretty tasty. Yeah, I don't see a lot of scenarios where Washington's favored to win against any team that's not in the NFC East. So picking them to cover these games is kind of a fun bet and probably a fairly safe bet the way the defense are going. But it's just kind of funny if you look at the the leaders in each category. Alex Smith, 1,400 yards, 4 touchdowns. Obviously, only played part of the season. 3,636 touchdowns for for Russell Wilson. But you have a sputtering team here in Seattle. It's kind of an interesting play. I think if Seattle kept things moving the way it was moving early in the season, this spread's a lot more than 5.
Sure.
But Seattle all of a sudden finds itself a few steps behind. Another interesting candidate for Coach of the Year, if things play out, would be a McVay. I don't necessarily like the guy. I think he thinks he's way better than he is. But that Rams team is playing about as good a two-sided football as any team in the NFC right now. So kind of watch out for them and watch out for him. But Metcalf and McLaurin about as close as it gets because nobody on that Redskins team touches Carson's numbers, which is ironic because Carson only has 500 yards, McKissick 300. So it's just kind of this balance. It's hard to tell if Gibson's going to play. It looks like he probably is. But when you look at it on paper, there's no reason why the Seahawks shouldn't cover, and I'm going to go with them. One, because my Eagles need Washington to lose, but also because I think they kind of right the ship. I feel like the early kind of stall from the Seattle defense, with them getting their safety back, and I feel like the run defense has looked better, and there's been a couple times where it's been the defense keeping them games when the offense was slipping. I think the real battle of this game is going to be Seattle's offense versus Washington's defense. And in a game that both teams kind of need to win, I'm going to trust Russell Wilson here to kind of shake off some of the cobwebs or the rust or whatever's going on in there. He's going to find more people than just DK Metcalf. Look for Lockett to have a pretty good game. And if there's one quarterback, because Washington's strength is coverage through pass rush. That front seven of Washington's about as good as anybody in the NFC. But if there's one guy I trust to kind of step and sneak his way through it, it's Russell. So I think Russell finds their weakness, and I'm not sure this one finishes super close. So I'll take Seattle to cover. Give me the over.
All right. Then we go to Sunday, 1 o'clock on CBS. You have the 6-7 New England Patriots taking on the 8-5 Miami Dolphins, a 2.5-point home favorite. 41.5 is your number on this one. I fell into the New England trap a couple weeks ago when they had the big win. I think it was against Cleveland, whoever it was. They had that huge win, and I kind of bought the hype. I thought, all right, Belichick's got that team going. Cam Newton looks like Cam Newton again. I bought into him. I picked him last week, and it kind of bit me in the ass. Miami's playing well. The defense and special teams is really clicking, and Tua's starting to look like he's settling in.
Don't get me started on the Dolphins.
We'll let that one go. But I think Tua's settling in to that quarterback position a little bit, and so I like Miami to cover. They're going to win this game. I'm going to take the over, and Sean, you can go ahead.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Yeah, to kind of catch the listeners up in my fantasy playoffs in my own league, I played against a friend of mine named Laser, who, big Dolphins fan, decided, you know what, I don't care if they're playing Kansas City. I'm going to start every single Dolphin. Everyone from their defense and their kicker, a tight end, a wide receiver, a running back. It was 7 Dolphins on his team. And I'm looking at the projected points like, I got this thing like, and of course, Tua explodes. He started Tua over Hill in you got Taysom Hill against the Eagles, who for all intents and purposes, despite the fact the defense has played well, if you'd asked me to pick Tua or Taysom Hill, I was not going to pick Tua in those games. But he made the right plays. Everyone on the Dolphins scored. Gesicki lit me up before exiting the game with whatever injury. Yeah, it does suck. Garbage. Run this league for close to 2 decades. Still no titles. Still no trophies to hang up.
And my wife lost. I didn't make the playoffs. Another year that the Justice League goes without a niece as a champion. This is getting
ridiculous.
Absurd. It's getting absurd, John.
Now, despite my anger for the Miami Dolphins, I will tell you this: even when the Dolphins were terrible, Dolphins, I don't care who their quarterback was. Was it a sputtering Tannehill? I don't care how bad the coaching staff was. The Dolphins always find a way to split with the Patriots. And I refuse to think that that's going to change just because they have a better record than the Patriots. They already lost to the Patriots early in the year before things got rolling. And I think Dolphins fans love to beat the Patriots. Dolphins win. Dolphins cover. And I will also take the over in this because I think somehow points get scored. And make it a double lock. I'm going to make this my lock of the week.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
The old double lock. I didn't check in
Does a
to
part
how
of me
we
hope that
fared on
jinxes
that
his fantasy team in the playoffs? Yes.
It's funny. I in my league, I'm going against a guy who has Christian McCaffrey. I have Christian McCaffrey in another league that I'm in the playoffs. However, I just saw today Christian McCaffrey probably not playing this weekend for the Panthers, but I have had McCaffrey's backup all year. The guy I'm playing in my league does not. So I'm totally okay with the development in Carolina. All right, then we go to Sunday, 4:25 on CBS. It is your defending Super Bowl champion, your NFC West champion, the Kansas City Chiefs, 12-1. They're a 3.5-point road favorite at 10-3. New Orleans, 51.5 is your number here. The Saints just lost to the Eagles. How am I like I think Drew Brees may be practicing. I don't think he's going to play this week. I don't think he's expected to play this week. But seriously, how am I supposed to even humor the idea of picking the New Orleans Saints to beat the Kansas City Chiefs when they just lost to a team in the NFC East? It's the Chiefs. It's the Chiefs plus. I'm going to go under because Taysom Hill, and I'm going on the idea that he's playing, Taysom Hill is a terrible quarterback. Good running back, terrible quarterback. They're not going to score enough points. Give me the Chiefs plus and the under.
Yeah, this one, right up until I started talking about the Dolphins, was going to be my lock of the week. But it, I mean, the guy I feel for in New Orleans more than anybody else right now is Jameis Winston. Because to me, the reason he was – now, part of it is you want to see what you have in Taysom Hill. I get that. One of the, risks, obviously, is, do I really throw a guy in there that everybody knows turns the ball over, and then he does turn the ball over, and I look like – and I get the big I told you so. Well, now you went the other way, and Taysom Hill is currently on pace to break the record for fumbles in a season. Also was a Saint, ironically. Aaron Brooks was the former record at 13 fumbles, I believe. Taysom Hill has 10 fumbles in 13 games. That is an unbelievable number for anyone. I don't care what position you. If Ezekiel Elliott for Dallas, let's say Dak's in there, Cowboys are, challenging or winning a bit. Ezekiel Elliott fumbles 10 times in 13 games.
Which I think
Tony Pollard starting the next would already have been starting.
Probably, yeah.
And I understand that you're like, well, we just got to win enough games, and eventually Drew Brees will be back. You think, right. I mean, we're talking about broken ribs here, like punctured lungs. Maybe he comes back, plays a half, and it's like, you know what?
He's old too. It's.
But things are in disarray there now. One loss to the Eagles, which, by the way, if things had gone the way people projected the Eagles to go and whatever, this would have been a very high-profile game last week, the Eagles-Saints. But it wasn't. And it kind of worked out. The Eagles' defense, the one thing the Eagles' defense has done well all year, though, and one of the reasons I thought we might win that game is because it's hard to run on Philadelphia. And when you're running an offense led by a running back, you only have so many options. And I think the Eagles really played to the Eagles' strengths, and they found a way to win the game. But now all of a sudden you have Sean Payton quoted in the media as saying Jameis Winston could be the quarterback when Drew Brees retires. I don't think he's calling him this week. Be something if he did. But I would think about it, and I think with a statement like that, it kind of points that Taysom may be on a shorter leash than we think. I wouldn't be surprised to hear later in the week that people saw Jameis taking some first team reps and things like that. So. I think there's a better than small chance you see Jameis this weekend. And because of all this disarray now if Drew Brees is healthy and comes back and plays, my pick changes quite a bit. But for now, I'm rolling with you. Kansas City, Andy Reid smells the 1 seed. He sees Pittsburgh slide, and he's got a chance to possibly go up by 2 games here on the AFC. Maybe secure a coach of the year. But But yeah, give me the champs to roll, and I'll take the under with you. I'm not liking a lot of what I see here in the offense. If it goes over, it's going to be all Chiefs.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, the Chiefs may score, 35, 40 points, but I'm not confident that the Saints can score 10 or 12 to push it to the over. So
yeah, I'm not loving anything. Although Kamara did do just enough to beat me in fantasy. He was one of the non-Dolphins, as was Miles Sanders.
As was. Then we can go to if you didn't need any more proof that this year is goofy as hell, a game that was originally in the 1:00 block. But the Cleveland Browns at the New York Giants.
What kind of madness?
Flexes into the Sunday night spot that was the Dallas Cowboys in this area. If you're around my age, mid-30s, mid-40, if you're between like 33 and 50, if you would have heard that the Browns and the Giants was going to flex out the Cowboys and the 49ers, you would have thought somebody was drunk.
No, I'm going to tell you the matchup, and you tell me. I'm going to tell you this matchup's going to be in prime time. You tell me what year it is. if I say Niners Cowboys in prime time, what year is it?
Every year.
Every year. I guess 1994.
Yeah.
But if I told you the primetime game was Browns Giants, I'd be like, I didn't know they had lights on the stadiums in 1945.
Like, are we in Alice in Wonderland world?
I would assume the quarterback would have been Y.A. Tittle, and it would have been
QB Browns versus Jeff Hostetler.
It would have been like Brown. Well, the Browns weren't even good. Who is it? Bernie Kosar? Like that? Maybe then
decent enough, but
I don't.
At no point,
I don't think they had. I don't think the 1950s had lights on the stadium, so I don't think they could have played in prime time. But this feels like Pat Summerall kicking field goals against Jim Brown and the Browns.
Like the Browns flexed out the Cowboys.
James, your primetime QB matchup is Baker Mayfield versus Daniel Jones.
I mean, 2020.
Nick Chubb versus Wayne Gallman.
Thing sucks.
Rashard Higgins versus Darius Slayton.
Right. I mean, Daniel Jones, they're talking, he might not even play that. It could be Baker Mayfield versus Colt McCoy.
Woo!
I mean,
Big 12.
Like what?
Texas, Oklahoma. Red River Shootout.
Like what?
Woo!
Like what the fuck? Like what the fuck?
Go Longhorns.
Anyway, it is the Cleveland Browns.
Hey, I guess that's our matchup. We got to pick this thing.
The 9-4.
Find anything else?
Well, I mean, it's a team that's still in the hunt for first. Two teams that are still in the hunt for first place in their divisions. Those matchups are hard to find, Sean, at this point of the year.
Jesus H. Christ! Right, go ahead.
The 9-4 Browns, 3.5 point road favorite at the 3.5 points at the 5-8 Giants. By the way, you're over under 45 again, 820 on
Even
NBC. Vegas
doesn't trust Baker Mayfield.
Nobody should. I mean, last night's game was fun as hell to watch. So maybe we'll, I'm not saying that Daniel Jones / Colt McCoy is going to be as exciting as Lamar Jackson, who still is a terrible quarterback, by the way. But the guy can run the ball really well. Although he did look great when he came out of the locker room. But anyway, I'm going to go the Browns to cover. I think the Giants are just the Giants stink, especially if Colt McCoy is your quarterback. The Browns know they got to keep pace with the Steelers. I'm going to go the over. Just I don't know. Both defenses are decent, but I feel like we're just going to have some sort of offensive explosion here on a Sunday night, similar to what we saw last night with the Browns and the Ravens. So I'm going to go Browns plus in the over.
I don't even know what to talk about here. I could talk about Myles Garrett, I guess. By the way, Myles Garrett, I read an article that with his contributions to various charities and helping out with Black Lives Matter, Myles Garrett is one of your odds-on Vegas favorites to win NFL's Man of the Year.
Okay.
1 year removed from smashing a helmet into somebody on prime
as a weapon, but it's and again,
there's also talk as of like
Happy Gilmore once tried to take a skate off and stab a guy, so
he's still the only guy to ever do that. But yeah, He's also preseason he was one of the favorites for NFL Comeback Player of the Year just because of some of the slides because of that kind of personality wise and image wise. I don't think he's got a chance now with Alex Smith. But let's get into the picks. Once again, we're picking a game where I need one team to lose, and I think you're setting me up. Let's just pick all the NFC East games so we know what Sean's picking, and I can just pick the opposite.
I didn't pick the Eagles this week.
Yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter. Neither did I. I think just off the card here. I think the Eagles in Arizona is not a bad pick. I think Kyler Murray's still hurt.
That was a game. I will be honest. I was looking at it. I think
Kyler Murray's still hurt. A few weeks ago, I really like the Cardinals' chances to win that West. I think it's the Rams' division to lose right now, but I like the Eagles with a chance to win there and then come back into a game in the NFC East and hopefully with the right losses, a chance to kind of finish on top with that tie.
Yeah, I think I had the Eagles on the pick'ems the last few weeks. That's why I held them out this week.
Yeah, but in this one, I can't pick the Giants. I can't do it. I mean, a good part of me says they're going to do it, primarily because I don't trust Baker Mayfield. But if there's one thing I trust less than Baker Mayfield, it's the New York Giants defense as a whole, which has actually played fairly well this year. I started them in fantasy twice, won both times. But it's kind of a spot start. The thing the Browns have going for them now is Chubb is healthy, Chubb is running, and Chubb is scoring touchdowns.
Sure is.
And I think Chubb may outscore the New York Giants in this one. I'm going to take the under, and I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns.
All right. So those are our 4 picks in the NFL this week, Sean. Before we close this thing out, I think we need to lean to our fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week. I think there was some strong candidates again this week.
There were some strong candidates.
So let's go to that.
All right, as we move into fantasy irrelevance, much like my fantasy football team, moving into fantasy irrelevance once again. Any of these guys can start for me. Like to begin with, we almost had an automatic lock twice. All of the guys who were hoping to be fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week held their breath when Trace McSorley took over for Lamar Jackson, and when Geno Smith took over a late game for Seattle. I was like, here it comes. I don't care who gets the ball. If he throws a touchdown, it's not even close. And he couldn't do it, just like he couldn't against his former team. He couldn't find the end zone.
Right, against the worst team in football.
He's a lifetime Jet. He doesn't even know there's end zones on the field. Anyway, all right, before we get to honorable mention, I'd like to point out yeah. Anyway, we did have a Kyle Juszczyk sighting again in San Francisco, as well as an AJ Green sighting in Cincinnati. None of them made the list. Let's get the list started. Honorable mention this week from your New York Giants. We had a Deion Lewis 1-yard run. If you had Deion Lewis on your fantasy team, God bless you. You had a total of 6 points. Moving into the official list. Yeah, who is he? Where'd he come from? What does he want from us? Third place comes from the Mile High City. We had Drew Lock. If you started him, God bless you. You were in way more pain than I was. Through to backup tight end Nick Vanette. Yeah, you know about as much as I do. Nick Vanette, had a weird illness from Noah Fant, who, by the way, was my starting tight end. Was Noah Fant, left in the first with an illness. Anyway, second, another quarterback that you may have started if you were a desperate son of a bitch, Derek Carr, but he threw a 47-yard strike to Foster Moreau.
Who the hell is this?
Yeah, his own mother didn't start him on her fantasy team. Had him stored on the bench though, just in case. And your number one comes from the city of brotherly love and my Philadelphia Eagles. I think a lot of people rostered Jalen Hurts. Few started him. With a strike early in the game, Alshon Jeffrey on the board for your fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week. I didn't see it coming. Luckily, he saw it coming. Got us 6 points on the board. Congratulations, Alshon Jeffrey. You are back from irrelevance to a whole different type of irrelevance, fantasy irrelevant
No
touchdown
idea who that is.
of the week.
All right. So that Alshon Jeffrey is your fantasy. Yeah. If you started Drew Lock in a fantasy playoff, how are you
The
in?
only people that were affected by any of those touchdowns were playing in the consolation bracket.
Okay, how were you in a fantasy playoff if you had Drew Lock?
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you in a 32 team league with two quarterbacks? Like, what,
I don't know.
What scenario are you in?
Drew Lock.
You're in like a 14 team league and everybody hoards 2 or 3 quarterbacks. Like,
I've been there.
Yeah, I've been there too. I have been there too, Sean. But that is going to wrap it up for us this week. Sean, let people know where they can follow you, and maybe on some Sundays let people know where they can get some early favorites for the fantasy irrelevant touchdown of the week.
Yeah, I've been a little off on the tweeting early on for that, but catch me at Shawnside State. It's SHAWN Shawnside State, being here in the Tampa Bay area. Quick shout out to the 76ers who in early NBA preseason action just upended the Celtics.
A little bit of that earlier.
Yeah, 108-99, your final score. Philadelphia 76ers on the board. James Harden, come to town. Why not? Can't get any worse as far as chemistry goes. But anyway, enjoy some big championship weekend this week. Go Birds! Try to shake something up late. We will see you next Tuesday.
Sean, what's the weather like in Tampa? I kind of want to know.
Tampa, it's cool. It's not as cold as it has been. I think tonight it's down into the 50s, but it's been a smooth, sunny 70 degrees here this week, minus 1 day of a little rain.
God damn it! Yeah,
we're happy. Enjoy your blizzard.
Yeah, say we're staring down the barrel of
send me pictures. People here won't believe me.
At least 10 inches, 12 inches, maybe 18, maybe 24, depending how the system shifts. Hopefully it shifts and we get like 4 inches.
Well, send me pictures of your 2 feet of snow. I'll send you pictures of my 2 feet of sunshine.
I will most certainly do that, Sean. We will talk to you next week, and make sure you follow me. I am at Big Jim Sports. You can follow the show at Huddle Up Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. Instagram is at Huddle Up Pod. But make sure you are following along with our home network, NGSC Sports, at ngscsports.com. Subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as Amazon Music. Give us a rate and review on Apple. Until next week, though, stay safe, stay smart, go for the win. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?